Hello and welcome to the Mana Flood podcast, the only podcast where the boys decided a hand with 5 lands, an arcane signet, and a soul ring was a good enough hand to start. Get your floaties ready because the episode starts now.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Mana Flood podcast. I don't know if you noticed, but today the setup looks a little bit different. Because I got sick of John, I needed some space. So
I played Armageddon one fucking time, dude.
And now you get the little table, so...
I like this little table.
Naughty Armageddon players get the little table.
So perfect. So beside me here, we have our very special guest. I'll let you introduce yourself here.
Hi. You might recognize me from my hit role in the video game Baldur's Gate 3. It's Gale. But on a serious note... my name is Cody Sheltis. I've been playing Magic since 2017, mostly just Commander. You can find me on Twitch, Instagram, Discord, and Twitter at MasterNoob411.
Perfect. I, as always, am from the Flood, and I'd like to say a huge thank you to Nom Honey for the wonderful intro and outro that you'll hear at the end of the video. And, John needs no introduction, so we'll just move on. No, I'm kidding.
So rude. I'm never playing Armageddon again. Psych. I am, of course, Parmesan. You can find me on Instagram, X, and TikTok at Parmesan TV. Also, a very big shout out to our friend Ozzy. She did our nice, shiny, new, fancy logo. If you want to commission anything from them, or you even just want to take a look at their art, you can find them on Instagram at The Stars Have Eyes.
Right on. So today's episode is going to be another etiquette episode. Today we're going to be focusing on LGS Etiquette, or if you don't know what an LGS is, it is a local game store. We have a couple of points each that we're kind of just going to work through, and we will go from there. I'll kind of get us started here. When you're at your LGS, when you're at your local game store, make sure you're talking to the table. It is so important to talk to the people that are across from you. I know it can be scary. I know people are frightening. I mean, I have social anxiety. I don't know. I've seen both of you at both of the LGSs that we go to, but I'm personally like, new people. Oh, okay. So I get that it can be super scary, but it's still super important to be communicating with the table. Maybe not at all times, but when it's necessary, you know? So.
Yeah. It circles back to the Rule Zero conversation a lot of the times. Like, you want to be able to communicate the kind of game that you're looking for and the kind of game that you're expecting from these people. Even if it's people you don't really know, it's definitely a good idea to open up with just like, hey, this is kind of what I'm looking for. This is what I've brought to the table, so that you're not, getting walled out necessarily by somebody who wants to be there to show how good they are at Magic.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very difficult to communicate whether you're having a good time or not if you're never speaking up, If you don't say anything, people aren't going to know whether you're having fun or not. And even if you just at the end have a hissy fit and then get up and leave and go, that was no fun, people are going to forget in like 2 minutes, or they'll be like, oh, that's the dude who lost his shit last time. All right. So communicate at all times. If someone was like, hey, dude, Rule Zero, we're all like power level 5, and then someone brings out their CEDH deck, and then you go, dude, come on, that's CEDH, right? So it's just communicating at all times. It's very important. Like, I've got written down here, questions that you have won't get answered unless you ask them. So if you've got a question about the board state or the state of the game or anything along those lines, you're not going to get a dialogue going. Nothing's gonna really happen. Like, I think we've all been in one of those Commander games that are just kind of quiet and awkward because everyone at the table just isn't talking or isn't engaging. And yeah, it's not particularly.
Also, like, if you're a newer player, it's very important to communicate, especially when you don't know like what a certain mechanic does, or like what a certain card does, or a certain keyword, speak up. Ask the table, like, "Hey, man, what does vigilance mean?"
Yeah.
More than likely, somebody at the table is going to know what vigilance means, unless like you all just picked up your first precon.
In which
yeah.
case, please have at least one experienced player, like
or Google ready.
Yeah, or like a laptop or something ready to answer the questions that you're going to have, and it helps to ask those questions because that's how you make friends, right? If you go, "Wow, that was a really cool interaction. How did you do that?" There's not one Magic player that's like, "Ugh, that's how Magic works, idiot." They're gonna be like, "Oh, all right, I'll talk about my deck for the next 30 minutes." Like, that's just kind of how these things happen with it. So it's really, really just, yeah, talk to your table. Keep the communication open. It's going to make for a better game for everybody involved.
Mm-hmm. All right. Moving on. Very important, no matter like where you're playing Magic. But definitely at an LGS where it's a public setting. Hygiene.
Yeah.
Please, for the love of God, wash your hands. Take a shower. Take a bath. Go for a swim in the local lake. I don't care.
With shampoo and conditioner.
Yeah, sure, man. Like whatever floats your boat, whatever they say. Just please, be cleanly. Even if you don't have time to take a shower, always make sure you have like body spray or something that you can spray down. Yeah, just hygiene, very important. It's respectful to others. It's also like very distracting when you have that rancid odor that is body odor at your table. So.
That banana tempura.
How dare you?
Especially like at an LGS where we're all, it's not just 4 people gathering together at somebody's house. There's upwards of like 12, 16 people all gathered in one room. And especially during the summer, that gets hot. And when that gets hot, everybody starts to sweat, and then it just accentuates it more.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. It can get rank even if you come clean. So come clean. Like it shouldn't be something that we have to say, but the fact that we're still saying it means there's some people, and like we said before, talk to people. If someone's stinky, be like, "Hey, bro." Or go to the owner of the LGS and go, "Hey, bro, like, dude stinks." They'll do something, because if you don't think you can do it politely, the owner will try.
Yeah. One thing that I like see, not like a lot, but I definitely seen it like multiple times, is like, if you're gonna sneeze and you're gonna like sneeze into your hands, cool, man. By all means, please go wash your hands. Your table's not gonna be upset if you're like, "Hey guys, you clearly saw I just sneezed into my hands. I gotta go wash my hands super quick." And you'll be like, "Thank you."
Thank you for not sneezing and then trying to handle my mana crypt. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's like I'm pretty bad for like biting my nails. I don't do it when I'm playing because, constantly handling cards and whatnot. But if that ever happens, it's always a quick get up, wash hands, come back, sit down. I've seen people try to handle my stuff like after hands and mouth or anything, and I just go wash first. It doesn't matter if it's not yours. It doesn't matter if it's not necessarily expensive. Don't touch my stuff after you've just had your hands in your mouth.
Yeah, it's etiquette, right? It's etiquette.
Truly.
There's not many good reasons to really have your hands in your mouth to begin with when you're in public. But like, if you are going to do that, or if you're going to sneeze into your hands or whatever, if your hands are dirty or can be perceived as dirty in any way, just go wash them real quick. No one's going to complain at you. All right.
And I feel like that's a perfect segue. Another big thing about being at an LGS is respect. Not just for the people you're playing with, but respecting other people's time, because we have set a certain amount of time for the evening where we are gathering together to play. So having the ability to actually engage and be attentive during that time is it's respectful to the table. Respect the property. That is, respect the LGS, clean up after yourself, respect other people's property. Don't handle cards unless you've asked. Like, if I'm playing with these guys, I'm okay to grab stuff. They're okay to grab my stuff because we know each other. If I'm at an LGS and I don't know you, and I play... She's in a case for a good reason. But if I play this very expensive Bumbleflower that I have, and somebody just grabs it, yeah, that's not flying. I do not want you doing that.
Yeah.
As well as just, respecting people. If you're with your friends or people you know, like bullshitting, shit-talking, that's fine. That always happens. Lecturing about other people about their plays, stuff like that, that's fine. But when it becomes borderline bullying, that's when, like, you can't be doing that. It doesn't matter if, like, they're targeting you unfairly, if they're exhibiting play patterns that you don't like. Don't be mean. Like, you don't have to be mean to people you don't know.
Yeah, and, like, there's definitely, I've seen kind of like a mean girl mentality when someone's just winning the game and they just happen to pop off. And then, like, the mean girl mentality comes in because maybe they're not usually at the LGS that they're currently playing at or what have you. And then, like, Buddy and all of his friends start ganging up and going, your deck's way too powerful. And they're, like, feeling really, like, attacked. And they're like, I'm playing a pre-con, And it's just, like... And it happens. Just don't do that. Like, it takes zero effort to not be a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
Really. It's like, if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say it. I think we've all heard that. Truly. And it still applies when you're an adult. It doesn't just go away after you turn 18.
Unfortunately.
Also, like, if somebody is playing slow, or they're just truly, like, playing slow, as I just mentioned, their hygiene's not that great or whatever, you can, like, say something and not be rude about it,
Mm-hmm.
You can do it very respectfully. If you yourself don't feel comfortable in doing that, by all means, go up to, like, the owner or whoever's working at the game store that time. They will more than likely be very comfortable with doing that for you.
Absolutely. And if you are a regular and you feel comfortable enough, if you see the bullying happening, you can kind of step in and just be like, hey guys, that's not cool. Like, I've been watching this for a bit. I don't like what I'm seeing. Like, let's be adults here, right? And sure, the mean girls might get mad at you, but that new player will love you until they stop playing the game.
Yeah.
Like, you just made a lifelong friend, right? So it's definitely, as long as you're respecting people, and if you are seen as that person in the community, like in your community, who's always respectful, it's going to go a long way for you. You're going to have a lot of people, like, wanting to play with you. And the mean girl table, it'll be just them, right? People are going to sit down in a game with them and they're going to go, ugh. Whereas if you're constantly respecting everyone, you're going to sit down in a game and people are going to be like, oh, hell yeah, dude, let's play some Magic, right? So, yeah. And you can, like, you can see it. Just go to your LGS. You can see the people who are well liked, and they're well liked usually for a reason, right? Because it's not necessarily the best players. It's the players who are there who are having fun and making sure everyone else is having fun, that have the most friends and get invited to do the most things. So that's definitely a big one here. So, let's I guess we can kind of keep it going. I do my next point is kind of adding on to the respect point, but when you're sitting there and say the game's not going your way, or maybe it is, but you're constantly checking your phone, just, if you can't put your phone down for a game of Magic, maybe don't play Magic. Like, it's fine to take a call because, hey, it could be an emergency. It's fine to check because you got a text, but don't be like for 30 minutes with your phone out just going, Twitter, right? Like, that's not fun for the people at the table. It's not fun if you have to constantly re-explain what the board state is and what's happening in the game, and it's frustrating if someone's sitting at your table and just not paying attention whatsoever to the game that's going on.
Well, especially in a game like Magic where there's so much interactivity, and it just becomes, if you have to constantly remind somebody else to pay attention, then it takes your focus off of the game as well. And with the amount of triggers that go, especially in a 4-player game.
Yeah.
like, how are you supposed to keep up with your board state, how your board state interacts with other 3 board states, and trying to get this person who's not paying attention, who might have answers to stuff, but doesn't do anything until it specifically happens to them.
Yeah, and it's it can be, or you'll get they're on their phone and then it goes around and you're like, okay, I got my winning combo off, and they go, oh no, actually let's go back like 4 people in turn order and I'll play my counter spell, and it's like, come on, dude.
Yeah, at that point, you're done. It's done.
Yep.
You missed it. That's on you.
And like, oftentimes I will be like, I don't accept that you were like second, right? If they're last to react, I might be more lenient, but I really try to go with the, okay, is there any responses? And I'll look at each person, right? And if you're on your phone, you go, no responses. And then you go, oh, I win the game. And then they go, wait, what? No. Then I'm going to be like, well, you said no. Like, come on, dude. I feel like paying attention to the game we like to play shouldn't be hard. And it shouldn't be something. Most of these things are things we shouldn't have to say. They're just things we're saying because we see it constantly.
Yeah.
So yeah, just stay off your phones. Don't rush players who are doing their turn, right? And especially if they're new or newer to the game, or maybe they don't know their deck. Like, if you completely have no idea your deck and you're constantly going, oh, no, I don't know if that works, right? You're playing a super complicated combo deck, then, okay, maybe you're taking, like, time. But if someone hasn't even taken, like, 2 minutes and you're already like, come on, let's go, I want to do stuff. That's, like, there's a fine line between rushing and someone else just being an asshole, but...
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And that feeds off of the slow play thing as well. Like, there's different levels of slow play. It's people doing it on purpose versus, like, if you're unsure on how cards in your hand are going to interact, or, like, it's your first time with the deck, right? You want to make sure that you're doing it slow enough that you can still understand how all of your triggers work.
Yeah.
But nobody wins if you're rushing somebody through.
Yeah.
Because like, mistakes happen, triggers get missed, game states become irreparable, and it's just a nightmare.
Yeah, right. And I've had it where it's like, oh, actually, this was supposed to happen, and now we can't do that because it's been a couple turns, but it would have drastically changed the way everything went, and it's not a may, it had to happen, and we all just missed it because you were rushing. Like, that has happened, I think, to all of us, and it's not usually a huge deal, but if you're doing it every game, it would definitely get annoying.
Yeah,
right?
For sure. Another thing, kind of like with a new players thing, just for instance, you know, they have like a Path to Exile, like a Source of Plowshares, something along those lines in hand, right? And they're trying to figure out what's the best thing to target with that spell, because, you know, they're new. Their threat assessment's not going to be too great by any means. Instead of being like, hurry up, dude, maybe like help them out, you know, being like, buddy dude over here has like a God, I don't know, like a Polywog Prodigy or something along those lines. Here's what it does. Here's why it's good for him. You know, help them out.
Explain the game a little.
Yeah,
man.
explain the game. Kind of point out like what threats are on each person's board, and then help them make a decision from there.
Yeah, and if you have threats, don't leave those out either.
No,
because I've seen a lot of the time where you go, okay, these are the 3 threats, like these are the 3 big threats, one from each player. Honestly, mine's probably the biggest threat. This is probably the one you want to do. Those players are always invited back to play groups. The ones who are like, yeah, mine's the biggest right now. I'll win next turn if you don't do anything about it. Right? And everyone at like, I don't think I've ever been at a table where I've been like, oh God, dude, don't throw yourself under the bus like that. Like, you know, I don't think I've ever been upset by someone helping out the new player like that. And I don't think I've seen other people get upset about it either, right? When they're genuinely helping out, and especially when they throw themselves under the bus, I don't think anyone's upset. Like, sometimes, sure, it's like, oh man, he didn't know I was the threat until you pointed it out. And it's like, well, you weren't going to say anything. So, like, why shouldn't I? Yeah, and yeah, again, help the newbies. That was my third point. We kind of segued into it naturally. But if someone's very clearly new to the game, help them. And I know in most situations, sandbagging is really bad. But when someone's new to a card game, Sandbagging, that's that. If it's their first game ever, a lot of times I might throw the game. If I'm like, oh, I could totally win here, but it's their first game ever, because then they get that first win ever. They get that experience, and then it's fun. They get addicted, and now they're part of our play group. So it's all part of the evil mastermind trap here, you know? To get
the
more
addiction
people
grows.
Exactly. But if you aren't helping them when board states are happening, they have their path to exile, they don't know who to target, so you're like, target yourself, get some life back or whatever, right? Like, they're not gonna have a great time, especially if they take your advice seriously and you do it to just steamroll them, right? That's not gonna be a good time.
Hey, buddy, pal, I see you got an Esper Sentinel right there, but you're very low on land drops. You should pat the exile.
Yeah, like, that's not fun. That's not.
No.
And you could do that. You can take advantage of new players very easily because they're new. But if you make sure they're having a good time, one, you'll have someone who loves playing with you. You're going to have someone who loves being in your pod, and you might get invited to all kinds of events that you didn't know were happening in your community. All right? There's so many different places you can end up, and you just go, I had no idea. That has happened to me in the last year, where I'm just getting invited places, and I'm just like, how did I get here? Yeah. So there's my second point. We'll go into to John's point here.
We were kind of talking about this earlier as well. But please rule zero whenever you're at a pod. You know, gauge kind of what power everyone's playing at. Gauge what kind of game everybody wants to have. And if there's any like new players, especially at the pod, you know, because they're going to need some help. They're going to maybe need a slower game just so they can learn, keep up with everything. Just have that conversation. It's going to be very helpful towards the pod in the long run. And, you know, when you don't have those conversations, as like mentioned before, you have a bunch of like power level 5 decks, and then somebody's like, I'm going to play CEDH Rog Thrash, have fun.
Damn.
You know?
I'm pulling out Nadu, boys.
Nadu.
Yeah, it's if you don't have these conversations, then the person who's pub stomping will be like, well, you guys didn't say I couldn't, because that's generally their personality.
Yep.
From what I've noticed, if you don't have the rule zero, you get the pub stompers playing the victim, and it's like, you knew what you did. You knew exactly what you were doing from the get-go.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just rule zero conversations also don't have to be long. It can be like, hey, don't be a dick. That could be like your entire thing, and then someone goes, I'm being a dick. Right? Like it, and like most people have rule zero conversations without knowing that they're having rule zero conversations, right? Like, to an extent, LGSs will put in like, hey, don't win before this turn because we're trying to keep it casual. And that does limit decks to a degree, but if you don't have this conversation, you'll still get people who will win very early into the game. Turn 1, 2, 3. Sound familiar? Someone lost a whole bunch of points because they won way too early.
I don't know what you're talking about. Who would do such a thing?
Definitely nobody here.
No, nobody
way.
here plays Kin and Bounder Brothers. What?
Right, I forgot you had that.
Yeah.
Me? I wasn't talking about me.
Oh yeah, of course, my bad.
Of course not. No.
I misunderstood.
But yeah, in all seriousness, you know, I have a conversation. Even if like the table isn't CDH, but you want to play your CDH deck, maybe you want to like learn the lines. Something you just want practice with the deck, you know. Be like, hello, here's the deck. Is it cool if I play it? If not, okay, cool. Yoink.
That landed right side up. We got a sports guy over here. Holy. Basketball the Gathering.
I was not made aware of falling objects when I agreed to be on this pod.
Oh, it's in the contract.
Fine
okay, print.
Sounds good. Perfect.
Surprise.
But yeah, rule zero. Just if you go to the table and you go, all right, guys, rule zero, and they go, oh, then you just go, okay, I guess. that this game might suck a little bit,
Yeah.
but you can also learn a lot from those players, and then just kind of, again, communicate with them, talk about their decks, ask what they're doing.
Mhm.
The game's gonna feel like, even if you go in knowing, okay, I'm gonna get pub stomped, but if you ask about the decks and stuff, there's a good chance next game they're gonna be like, all right, well, that deck may have been a little strong, I'm sorry, and they might drop the power level, right? If you're just nice about it from the get-go, people are more receptive to Rule Zero conversations. Is what I've noticed, anyways, right? So, yeah. Okay, we'll just hop right on. We'll just move right along here.
All right. Actually, a good segue off that. Another thing to build off of that is the concept of punching down. What I mean with this is, like, again, if people are bringing their super strong CDH decks just for the simple cause to, like, pub stomp the table, show how good they are at Magic, that's one of the examples of punching down. The other one that I find a lot, and this happens more with, like, newer players, is somebody's getting mana screwed, somebody doesn't have a board presence, and now they're the punching bag from everybody. Nobody else is getting swung at because everybody else can defend themselves. Whereas the person who is clearly not playing the game, not able to contribute to the game in a meaningful way, is just getting beaten, and their experience just becomes a lot less fun.
Yeah, I think everyone who's played Magic has been the punching bag at some point, and to an extent, it could just be said, "Hey, shuffle your deck a little bit better."
Mm-hmm.
But it happens. You get mana screwed. You get mana flooded. It has happened so often. Oh, I said the thing. I said the thing. I win.
That's the name of the movie.
But I think it's happened to everyone, where we'll be playing a game and we become the punching bag because people have attack triggers and they don't want to lose their creatures. And it's like, that's fine. But also, if your deck revolves around needing someone as a punching bag to function, you should probably work on your deck building a little bit. Like, you should be swinging at the people with the big board states. You should be trying to get rid of their board, because the guy who's the punching bag is probably not going to be a threat for a good couple of turns.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you do not have to worry about them. Unless they're playing something where they're like, I just need one more combo piece and I win. Then, sure. If they're playing like a CEDH deck and they got screwed on their lands, and everyone else is like power level 6, 7, yeah, kick the crap out of them. Go for it. But that's like the one exception to the rule. And yeah, absolutely. Don't gang up on the one poor sod who didn't get the lands they needed.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely... I've been in that scenario a few times. Mostly because, like, one of the decks that I play a lot is Babala Saga. And she eats a lot of my permanents. But I draw cards, gain life, and drain the table. I can usually keep a fairly greedy hand with that deck, because it's my most land-heavy deck, because a lot of the stuff that I eat are lands. I think I went, like, 5 turns without drawing any, and then I got targeted for an exile effect, and I think half of the cards that got exiled were lands, and then I didn't draw any, and so at that point, I just picked up my stuff and waited for the game to finish, because, like, I'm not doing anything. And just sitting there while other people slowly beat you to death with like 2 3s or 4 2s, you know, not my kind of a game. So that was entirely my fault. But like, there are examples, you know, where if you're ramping, you don't draw any relevant cards to play with the cards that you've ramped with, or you're just, you know, new deck, shuffling it up, and you're just not drawing any lands or enough lands in order to cast anything. It happens to the best of us, and it's just one of those things that if you see it happening, like, obviously, do your best to, you know, not maybe focus them out because they're clearly not doing anything, but it is at the end of the day, it is still a game that we're trying to win. Having fun is good, but we do want to win. Like it is a game that we want to win against 3 other people. It just feels bad when everybody picks on the one person who went land, Soul Ring, and then nothing for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's not fun when you're in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've all been there where we're like, oh man, this hand is so gas when I eventually get 7 mana, and then you realize, I only had 1 land. Shoot.
Yeah, why would you hit the person with like 400 plus life and an Aetherflux Reservoir on board? Nah, hit the person who's land screwed.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, like
Don't do that.
Just, if you see your opponents struggling, even if you're like, oh, it's only chip damage, they won't care, don't gang up on them. That's not very nice. And if you're getting ganged up on and people are consistently just using you, and because if you're land screwed early, when you're out of the game, you're done. And that I don't think I've ever seen someone who was land screwed come back and win. Maybe like 1 in 100 times, right? But It's not common. So if you're the one who's land screwed, feel free to just, on your turn, scoop so that people can't keep chipping at you and using you for free resources, because if you hadn't been land screwed, they wouldn't continually do that. They would, the game state would be completely different. If you were playing literally anything, the game state would be a very different, it'd be a very different looking game. So don't feel like you have to sit there and just keep getting beat up as the game goes on, right?
Also, like, it may just be like chip damage you're taking, like somebody's like, oh, it's just 3 damage. But that could be like the 3 damage somebody needs to completely remove you from the game.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Yeah, like you come back and you start, but that chip damage was enough that you never really get back into the game.
Yeah.
And I get to an extent that's the point of the chip damage, but if someone's doing literally nothing, you can also just not be a jerk and swing somewhere else.
Yep.
Right? Like, I know there's cards that are like, on attack or when you deal combat damage, draw a card, and people are like, oh, haha, free card draw off this guy. That might feel great for you, but when you're in that position, it most certainly does not feel great.
And to sort of build off something you said, we have, like, at the LGS that we play at, and a lot of people adopt this philosophy, but by the rules, you are allowed to concede the game at any time, but most people choose to do so at sorcery speed, so on their turn. Specifically, so you're not getting people that are salty about how the game is going to scoop in response to, like, damage triggers or attack triggers, so that you're denying somebody the triggers that they should be getting.
Also, to go with that, I'm pretty sure if you scoop in response to someone attacking, they still get their attack triggers, just not the combat damage ones. Yes. So if you're trying to be a salty Sally, that doesn't work because you're not out of the game until the end of your turn.
Exactly.
So.
It would be something. It's mostly like before they go to combat, just like, well, you're going to attack me anyways. I'm just going to pick up my cards so you can't swing it at me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's, I've done it. Sure. I was not the hero. Nobody was like, wow, what a good play. It was more, can he do that? And I was super salty at the time, I'm not going to lie. And yeah, just don't do that. It makes you just less fun to play with if you do it consistently. Like, I did it once, and then they were like, hey man, that was kind of a dick move. And I was like, yeah, but I was out of the game anyway. And they're like, well, then you could have scooped on your turn instead of waiting to get attacked. And I was like, okay, fair enough. Like, scooping on your turn has the exact same effect, except they just can't attack you.
Exactly.
Really. It's not done maliciously.
Yeah.
You're not doing it reactively.
Yeah. Like, if you're going to scoop, if you know, okay, if they swing at me, I'm dead, stay in the game unless you've done nothing all game and you're just like, I'm ready to go next, right? Like, or you can feel like I'm not in the mindset to stay in this game right now. I'm getting very upset about something happening. Scoop on your turn, right? Like, you can let the game play out, but you are also, like, letting the game play out will change the outcome of the game, the same as if you scoop on your turn because there's nothing to do, right? Like, regardless, that is like the biggest argument for scooping as a sorcery is they go, well, it changes the outcome of the game. And it does. But no matter how you lose the game, it changes the outcome of the game.
Yes.
So just don't do it at instant speed. Don't do it specifically to screw somebody over, because they might be like, okay, there's 3 people left. I'm going to run over him and then go and try to get, my attack triggers, and like they need the life to survive the next turn or what have you. Right? You don't know what their strategy is. And if you're just maliciously screwing them over, it feels bad. Really. And like, I don't know, even if someone's pub stomping, let them pub stomp and then just go, all right, I'm not playing with him again. We'll go find some other friends at the LGS and kick him out of the pod. Right? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because like that's the one kind of scenario where someone's deck is way more powerful than the rest and you want to scoop at instant speed to screw them over and make them lose the game. But that makes you just kind of just as shitty as the pub stomper. And it took a lot of character development on my end to kind of realize that and go, okay, well, I'm just as bad if I'm getting upset and salty and just instant scooping all the time. So yeah, scoop is a sorcery when you can. Unless, you get an emergency call and it's like, oh shit, I gotta go, I'm scooping, right? And people aren't gonna be like, what a toxic dude.
Harry Potter and the audacity of this man.
I am the witch and the audacity of this bitch.
Exactly.
Harry Potter and the prisoner of audacity. ASMR drinking. Okay, we'll just move right on to your last point here. And yeah.
All right. So this also goes back to your point about helping newbies, is clearly representing your board state as well as the cards. So board states get messy. There are decks that will populate the table with tokens. I run as John can attest to, I have an entire deck box filled with tokens that all of my decks will use. Some of them have the ability to populate like 50 plus tokens a turn cycle. So being able to clearly represent that, even if it's with like just paper that you've written on or the actual tokens, just making sure that you have the ability to represent like this is summoning sick, the power and toughness, whether or not they can fly, just stuff like that, as well as clearly representing and explaining your cards. I run a lot of janky nonsense in a lot of my decks. A win condition in my 5-color flicker deck is Deathbellow Warcry. It's an 8-mana sorcery that tutors for 3 different Minotaurs and puts them into play. Nobody really knows what that card does, and when I explain it, I'm not like, you don't have to necessarily explain the exact win condition that is going to happen from it. But, like, just saying, I'm going to cast Deathbellow Warcry and then start doing the thing. Nobody knows what that card does. Unless you're playing Minotaur Tribal, I guess. Or Kindred, sorry. Nobody understands what that card does. My Babala Saga list plays Commander, All-Star, 1-drop, Genju of the Cedars, and Genju of the Fens. Which, if you don't know what those do, too bad. They enchant Cedars, enchants a forest, Fens enchants a swamp. Just letting people know, like, these give my lands the ability to turn into creatures, which then my commander can eat to give me more card value. It's just a simple matter of not everybody knows what every card in Commander does. There are thousands upon thousands of legal cards. Unless it's stuff like Counterspell, which is fairly intuitive as to what the name is, and stuff like that. It's not okay to just assume people are going to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So when you go to cast something, not only like asking for priority checks, but even just like, I'm going to cast this is what it does. You don't have to necessarily, like I said, go into, I'm going to cast this Deathbell War Cry that will find me 3 Minotaurs, which happen to be changelings, which happen to flicker each other infinitely. Like, I don't have to explain all that. I at least have to explain what the card does, though.
Yeah. And like, if someone's new and they went, hey, can you win off that? You would probably be like, yeah. Yeah, I win off this. Because you said it was an 8 mana spell.
It's an 8 mana sorcery.
So like, you can assume if someone's casting something that's 8 mana, you can assume they're going to try to win off of it.
If I'm dumping 8 mana into a Minotaur tutor, yeah.
Yeah, like, you're probably going to try to win off of that.
It's like, why would you be playing that unless it's like for some very specific janky combo? So
yeah, and like, you can, like, there are new people, like new players for sure. They build their first deck, and it's like a mono green deck with just massive creatures in there because they don't know. Hey, that's not great. You can't have every card you play as a win con. That doesn't work well in Commander. You'll become the punching bag, like we said earlier. And like, if your deck's built around you being the punching bag, like, don't take advantage of other people not using you as a punching bag, right? If your play group is like, all right, someone's the punching bag, just don't, right? But if you build a deck to exploit those rules or any rules that you know are set, you're kind of a jerk. Like, don't. You can't reasonably expect a Commander game to wait until turn 10 so you can play your first creature. Like,
yeah,
do something so that you're in the game, because I know no matter where you go, someone will try to manipulate the rules to make them seem much stronger or better than maybe they actually are. So don't do that. And like, when it comes to representing your board state, it's really easy to just go, all right, I'm playing this card. Here's a summary. Or like, here, I'm playing Soul Ring. I tap it for 2 mana. And people are like, okay, easy enough. Right? Like, you don't have to like pick it up and go, little turn symbol thingy, add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. You don't have to read it word for word. You can summarize it real quick and go, all right, this is what it does. And in certain cases, if someone asks, what are you using it for? You go, I'm using it to win the game. Or, it's getting me a couple of forests out of my deck, which will get me a win in the future unless someone sitting at the tiny table plays land destruction. Mass land destruction. Targeted is fine, unless you're just destroying a basic land, in which case you're an ass. Why would you do that?
I'm an advocate for targeted land destruction.
Womp womp.
It is
Cry me a river.
completely off topic. I feel like targeted land destruction on a basic that someone has a lot of, it's just annoying. It's like, why are you doing that? Very funny. But also, if you do it like, it's a viable strategy if they are like, I finally got my first island, and you're like, no. Sorry.
Stone Ring?
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, that was completely off topic.
And targeted.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like land destruction should be.
Yeah. We've been bullying you a lot this episode.
Boy, howdy, I'm so glad I got invited here to bully my friend John.
It's not water that I spilled on my chest, it's John's tears.
Another thing about like having a clearly represented board state is making sure that like all of your permanents of a certain type are in the same area, or at least have, because I know a lot of people will put like mana producing artifacts in with their lands. And so
Sorry, there's a fluff.
No, that's all good. I wasn't sure what you were. I just like in the court, just.
I was just like.
Oh, I must be doing something right, I guess. But yeah, like I know some people will keep their mana rocks with their lands, and technically they should be separate. There was a lot of like rules stuff around this with Dryad Arbor being kept in lands as opposed to it being with creatures. But as long as you're like communicating with everybody else and just clear about like, yeah, I've got my rocks down here, even if they're in the same area and you just keep them slightly separate from your lands, just making sure that at a glance somebody could look at your board state and realistically summarize what they see.
Yeah, like don't hide all of your artifacts in your lands. Or if you are someone who just, you do that, it's something you do. If someone's going like, okay, I've got something that destroys artifacts, don't be like, oh, that's crazy. Wow. Be like, all right, I got a couple artifacts. They're here in my lands. You can't see them right now, but here they are. Feel free to destroy them. Or if someone's like, oh, how do you have so much mana? It's like, oh, there's artifacts here. I've got my mana rocks here. It's just easier for me to have them here. As long as you're communicating that you have the artifacts, then nobody's going to have a problem with it. If you're trying to hide it, that's when people are like, oh, come on, dude. That's like, you're cheating. Like, stop that. Don't be a baby.
Yeah, exactly.
This isn't Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Chaotic. It's not designed for children. It's not a children's card game.
Man, just said Chaotic.
Yeah. Plug in my other podcast. It's coming back, we hope. By the time this releases, we'll probably know. But, yeah. Product announcement in September.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I did hear something about that game coming back, potentially, actually.
Yeah, so we're excited for that. It was more popular than Magic at one time, so we'll see if it gets there again. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's probably about everything we wanted to say about LGS etiquette. Respect people. Don't be a dick.
Don't be stinky.
Make sure people know what's going on during the game. And, yeah, be good to each other, really. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I understand wanting to win. I understand being hyper-competitive. But if you're doing it in a way that everyone at the table's having fun, that's good.
Yep.
Because realistically, you should only be winning about 25% of your games, right? Yes. And like a 26% win rate is good. And if you're losing more than 25%, or if you're losing more than 75% of your games, that can be frustrating, sure. But if you're at a table with a bunch of great people, you probably won't even notice.
Exactly.
Right? So be one of the great people that you'd love to have at your table. And really, you'll get invited to more tables. That's what it boils down to. But yeah, I guess we'll end the episode there. I'm a little blind today. I can't quite see how far we are, but I think it's shorter than normal, but I'm sure that's A-okay. Some people have asked us to try to keep the timers down, but yeah, I'm from The Flood. You can find me on X. Sometimes I'm on Twitch when I have time. I also host another podcast called Chaoticast TCG, which should be released by the time this is. And the wonderful gentleman beside me.
Oh, that's me. Hi, it's me, Gale from Baldur's Gate 3 again. You can find me on, on Twitch. I don't stream very regularly, mostly just the charity stuff in November for Extra Life. You can find me there, Twitter, Instagram, and Discord at MasterNoob411.
And once again, I am Parmesan. Some people call me Balloon Ed Sheeran. Fuck you. You can find me on Instagram, X, and TikTok at Parmesan TV.
And if you like these kind of episodes where we bring in a guest, let us know. The more feedback, the better. If you want us to bring Cody back for a future episode, again, let us know. And if people want it, we were going to do it anyways eventually. But if we got enough people that are like, we want him back next week, then one, we release every other week, so it's not likely, but but we'll try to get him back as soon as we can. So I guess we'll end the episode there. You can hear this wonderful outro that was made for us by Nom Honey.
Thank you for listening to the Mana Flood podcast. Any references to companies or other content creators in this episode are done strictly out of love for the brand, as we are not sponsored. If you would like to contact us, our email is floodedmanapool@gmail.com, or find us on X at Flooded Manipool. You can also contact the host directly at From the Flood or at Parma John. Have a good day. Bye.